All right. Great. Thanks. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steph Hawkins. I'm the VP of Community Outreach and Engagement for the IIBA Bluegrass chapter. And we have with me my partner, Aaron Wittenberger, Finance and Admin. And today we have the amazing opportunity to talk to our BA on the street for November 2023, Rachael Wilterdink.
Hi, everybody.
Warm welcome to Rachael.
Thank you.
So Rachael has an impressive bio, so I'm going to start reading it, and I'm hoping that you will help me to, further explore it, and then we'll get into, all of your BA experience. But you are a principal consultant. You have over 25 years of IT experience, and in looking at you, I would never have guessed that, if I'm allowed to say that.
That's so sweet.
And you hold multiple business analysis and agile certifications. Great blend. And as a consultant, you've served clients in financial, retail, manufacturing, healthcare, government, education, insurance. I'm sure it's ...
Pretty close.
Sure, it's very much a ... And as we all know, you're very active in the professional community. I mean, I've had an opportunity now to see at a couple different IIBA chapters, presentations, along with, I know you're on boards and plus with the PMI community as well. Mm-hmm. And as a public speaker, you definitely have such a passion to share information and to learn information from other people as well, which is what today is about. BA on the streets is really, it's about, as understanding from you, all of your BA experiences and what that means, and just really get a flavor for you, as well as we always let the participants, as we're speaking, ask questions and engage you as well. So it won't be just me or Aaron talking to you. And actually, we're not even talking to you. This is a conversation. That's what
absolutely.
On the Streets is about. And you're also the author of a very popular book called 40 Agile Transformation Pain Points and How to Avoid or Manage Them. And so we have at IIBA Bluegrass a new topic coming on, upcoming BA Book Nook. So wait for that invitation for that.
Oh, I love books. I read so many books. I absolutely, love reading. So it's a good chance I might have read the book you picked. So we'll see.
Well, we will see. Yes, we have several. Yeah. And so, with that, do you want to tell us, with that bio, it's hard to ask this next question, but do you want to tell us more about your BA background? I mean, you have such a wealth of knowledge. How did you get there? Tell us about it.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So back in the day, early days of the internet, when it was still pretty new, I was, going to college, and I discovered the internet, and I'm like, I got to do something with this internet thing. And so I dropped out of college. I bought a bunch of books. I taught myself how to code HTML. Wow. I learned probably the very first version of Photoshop, and I built myself this giant personal website, which back then it was all about my interests. So it was a personal site, but it was, okay, I'm gonna die to say this, but it was silly things like the music that I listened to, or the hobbies that I had, or don't die laughing, but I loved watching Days of Our Lives, the soap opera back then. So I had this huge website of just all these personal things. And so I basically moved with my husband out to California in the era of the .com. And I happened to be looking for a job. And so I found Netflix, and I was an early adopter of their technology. Just so happens they were looking for someone with my skills. So I actually got my start in my career at Netflix when it was a startup in California, which was amazing. They couldn't even afford to hire me originally. They were a brand new startup, kid you not. We didn't even have money for real desks. We had card tables for desks.
Wow.
And then eventually, they're like, we really want to keep you. We want you, but we need to, get our next round of venture capital funding. So can you maybe work in customer service until we can afford to, hire you on? And so I was like, sure. So I did customer service for a couple months, and then they got their money, and then they were able to hire me. it was amazing. Like
Wow.
everybody should do a stint, I think, in customer service at whatever organization you're at, because I think it really helps you connect and empathize, with the customers. And a lot of times in our positions, we don't actually get to connect with those folks. So I think it's just a great way to learn about your company and how you actually impact, their
Right.
lives.
Right.
So anyway, so fast forward a few years, and I'm still doing all the techie stuff, web design, database, blah blah blah, all these technical things. And then I moved to Washington, working at a like local bank, and we were acquired by a larger regional bank. So that was my opportunity to transition to business analysis, which was perfect because I had little kids at that point, and I love technology, but it's hard to keep up, as anybody
Right.
who's a technologist
Yeah.
knows. And it keeps going faster and faster and faster. And although I love being a geek, I love doing all that stuff, it's just really hard when you've got little ones and responsibilities to just, keep up. So we had a really progressive CIO, and the IIBA was recently formed. So we're talking like 2005. So they are celebrating 20th anniversary now.
Right.
So that was like 2003. So fortunately, through this merger and acquisition, I had the opportunity to become a business analyst. And I was like, heck yeah, I'll jump on it. And I had a fantastic mentor who was a project manager, who actually was one of the original reviewers of the very first version of the Babcock, if you can
What?
believe it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was amazing. He really showed me the ropes. My very first technique that I ever learned for business analysis, formal business analysis, was the good old use case.
The use case. I still use that term. It's still my favorite. Sorry. I'm not retiring it.
Oh,
I'm not.
So it's a very good way to cut your teeth and to learn.
Mhm.
And my practice wasn't even on technology. It was wait staff at a restaurant. And I thought that was just a really great way to learn that skill and to get into business analysis. But once I became an official business analyst,
Right.
I realized I'd already been a business analyst for my whole IT career up to that point. Like I would talk to the stakeholders, I would elicit their requirements, I would document their requirements, I would build the solution, the full thing, and then I would, validate the solution with them. So I was doing the whole software development lifecycle by myself,
and not even knowing it, and not even
realizing, even realizing I'd been doing it all along. So for me, it was like the most natural transition in the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, I found this person that I am, and that and it wasn't a profession that existed. Like when I got out of high school, nobody would know what a business analyst was. Even today, you have to educate people on what the role is, because the title is sort of sadly ambiguous in a way, right? It could mean almost anything. And I've seen organizations that have quote unquote business analysts, but they don't do what we do. They're like financial analysts, or they're like reporting out. They're not business analysts, to my way of thinking. So anyway, becoming a BA was just such a great fit for me, and I love it. And since fast forward a few more years, and I became a consultant, and as a consultant, you get to work in all manner of industries and contexts and technology stacks. And so I've been doing the consultant thing for 10 years, which is why I love to share with others, because I've seen so much in my very long career, and especially things that were painful that I'd like to help other people avoid, right? So that's my book is pretty much all about, here's all the mistakes and the problems and the things I've seen. If you want to have a better blueprint for success, look at this list and don't do these things.
Don't do these things.
Exactly.
And that is so true, which is awesome with the various things that you've been able to do, right? It's just, and doing things that come natural, and then all of a sudden having that epiphany, wow, I'm a BA. I may not have realized it, but just the skills that you've accumulated, and taking that too, because I think a lot of times people, don't always have an opportunity to see so many different environments, right? Have so many different experiences, because you're either in the same job or same customer set, which is nothing wrong with that, but just that
No.
that richness of experience really does give you some diversity and being able to challenge what you know and say, okay, it worked great for 10 out of situations, but
Right.
not only, so you'd be able to really like take your skills and flex your skills over time, right? With that.
Absolutely. And helping others too. So other people who, most people don't wake up and say, I'm going to go become a business analyst. Right? It's not a thing
They
that you decide.
should. They
Right.
should.
They should. They absolutely should. But most folks come up through the business, right? And so I've also, as having been a consultant, I had the opportunity to help, basically mentor other colleagues of mine who were doing other jobs, who also didn't even realize that they were doing
Right.
business analysis, but they were business analysts. And so helping them formalize their knowledge and realizing, oh, I've been doing this and it's actually a technique. Like, I didn't know it was a technique that's recognized,
Right.
exactly in the BABAC. But once they get the stamp of, wow, you're doing this and it's actually an official technique, and then they start to get more confidence. And so
Right.
for me, helping share and spread that knowledge and growing this army of BAs is just, it's so much fun to watch people come into their competence and
Right.
succeed. And we don't always get to see the success of our labors, especially back before agile, right? So
Right.
in the early days of being a BA, you're going out there and you're spending, could be 6 to 12 months getting the
Yes.
requirements, right? You're interviewing stakeholders, you write this 200-page spec, you throw it over the wall. Oh, Aaron's got his hand up. Yes, Aaron, please interject.
Yeah, so can I interject a question?
Absolutely.
Oh, look at us. Absolutely.
Jinx.
So I find I do the same thing that you talked about a second ago, Rachel, and that is people don't understand what a business analyst is, what we do, and that in particular when I'm talking to the younger generation and everything. So do you have your elevator pitch when you were asked, what does a business analyst do?
Oh man, that's changed over the years, right? So in the early days, the definition was kind of, we're like a translator, right, between the business and the technical, and we can speak both languages. So we're bridging that gap. Like, that was an old definition, but I would say the newer definition is, we're helping to untangle complex problems and build, solutions, and being really strategic, trusted partners with our business versus order takers. So I feel like early in the career, I think the vision was more as a tactical role, but as the IIBA has evolved, as the profession has evolved, I feel like we're definitely moving more into the space of being that strategic, trusted partner. It's hard to get there, though. I think a lot of people still, they need the education about what a business analyst is, and definitely giving the elevator pitch is a hard thing to do. It's like, well, what do you do? Even my kids, like, I try to explain to my kids like what I do, and they're like, huh? They just don't really get it. It's like, I talk to people and I understand their needs. And I don't just take what they say at face value, because as we all know, what the stated need is not really the underlying business need. So you got to probe, you got to ask a lot of questions, be very curious. And it's about connecting the dots and understanding what is the actual need, which is, again, very often not what the stated need is. Yeah, so I think being a business analyst I think it's the glue that holds, teams together and helps them accomplish their goals. At the end of the day, we're team players, we're important, but we're not, on our own islands by ourselves. It's very much a group effort.
Right. And then with your with the BA work that you're doing with your project management skills, are you finding that you interweave those in or have they changed over time in your as
oh gosh, so even stepping back before I got into IT, I was an industrial construction estimator. So completely different kind of work.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
my dad was an architect, so I worked at his architectural firm growing up, typing architectural specs and change orders and like making blueprints and all these fun things. So I got formal education from an IT engineering and construction, or not IT, gosh, an engineering and construction company. So project management, like for construction. So this is the old school definition of project management. And it's very formalized. You have to do things in a particular order. I was coming up with multi-million-dollar estimates for giant substations and switch yards and transmission lines. And I mean, I was a young person back then too. So it was like, wow. But then I discovered the internet and it was all over. I'm like, I'm getting out of construction. But who knew I would be getting into, from one very male dominated profession into another very male dominated profession. But, but that gave me a very solid foundation of project management. But as a consultant, even as an employee, I've had to play a hybrid role many times. That's semi-project manager, semi-business analyst, and I have both the CBAP and the PMI cert for BAs, which is PBA. So that's also very interesting, the different views of those two organizations of the business analyst role.
Yes.
And it was a good experience going for the PBA. I mean, it's equally, I'd say, rigorous to the CBAP, or it's like their version of the PMP for BAs, right? So it's a difficult certification, but their view is, it's still very tactical, and they view the BAs as not necessarily a peer to a project manager, which always bothers me.
Right.
I very much view those as a partnership. Like this, you can get a good BA and a good PM, and they work well together. That can be like a dynamic duo. But their documentation is interesting because it covers, there's a lot of overlap. There's just a ton of overlap between what project managers do and what BAs do. And there's many opportunities to collaborate if you have more than one person.
Right.
But if you're just one BA/PM, you're doing it all, right? That's really hard because these are two very different perspectives, right? You have to wear different hats and be explicit. And I'm same in the Agile space. Like if you're being a Scrum Master /BA, like you just have to be very conscious of, like, right now I'm taking off my BA hat, I'm putting on my Scrum Master hat, and state that to the people that you're working with. Otherwise they might get confused, like, where are you coming from here?
What are you doing today?
I would say BAs tend to be very down in the weeds. We want to understand everything and we're going to ask a gazillion questions, whereas PMs are like, I just want to keep it on track. Are we on track? Are we on budget? Are we, blah blah blah, iron triangle. And and then Agile is totally the opposite approach, where you don't care so much, or you shouldn't care, even though most organizations are still stuck, I'm sorry, but 20 years ago, they're still in that old school mindset. And even my most recent client, like their manufacturing firm, and like you're dragging them kicking and screaming into the modern world of software development, and their leaders are still like, oh, we got this PMO, we need a status report. And it's like, when is it going to be done? Which is the eternal question, right?
It never is.
Well, and if it's a product and it's valuable, that's absolutely the right answer. Absolutely, Steph.
You're going to keep enhancing it.
Right. Exactly. Until there's no longer a customer desire or need for improvements, it will live on and on and on. And so these executives that ask, when's it going to be done? It drives me a little bit crazy, because it is a broken record, and almost every organization, as a consultant, the lack of knowledge and education of modern practices at the executive level is the hugest problem, like the biggest problem I think I see. And it causes all these problems. Like in my book, if you don't have education at the top, you can try all you want from the bottom up to make change, but unless you get somebody to really be your cheerleader and your sponsor, you're you're going to try, but you're going to fail most likely, which is really sad.
Right.
Really sad.
Well, all of that really helped. Vic had asked the question. He said, he still has to explain to people, what the difference is. So thank you for helping to clarify it, and especially bringing in the agile piece of it, because, it's going to be a while before, in some cases, it'll never. People, you have a methodology or a way. And so being able to have that BA background with project management, with agile, and all of that really does enrich the offering that you bring to people, right? Because you're able to flex between them where needed. And then take those skills. And then, a lot of times you bring in people forward, right? They don't realize that you're actually teaching them something new or new. You're just kind of like moving them along a little bit in a just, ghost-like fashion and all of that to help them get there.
Yes, very much, very much.
Very much. And so with all of these experiences, what are you finding like to be the most satisfactory or most satisfying thing? Like when you get to do it, you're like, yes, finally, or this is it. So any of those?
Yeah, I would say sprint reviews with your stakeholders and your customers when they are smiling and cheering and laughing and giving you feedback like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How about this? Like that to me is the ultimate. Like you've kind of arrived at a really good place where you've got the engagement, you've got the excitement. The stakeholders are no longer us versus them, IT versus business. We're like one team.
Oh, excellent.
Oh my gosh, my dog just did something in the kitchen. I hope you didn't hear that. There was a giant crash. And two dogs.
All is good.
French Mastiff, he's the bad one, and a Rottweiler. And the French Mastiff is causing all sorts of chaos right now. Anyway, no, it's seeing that like excitement. So those executives who are asking, when's it going to be done? When they start to get engaged, they actually show up at the sprint reviews and they're seeing that incremental progress. That to me is, and they stop asking the question. When they stop asking the question, when is it going to be done? Then you've arrived.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I had that this week actually with one of the we were presenting to their boss, and they had very little questions, and we got the go ahead. And to me, it was like, yes, all of this prep work, all of these pre-meetings to just get to that, to make sure that, when we go to the leader, that everything is in. It was just amazing. So
and there's no surprises, right? I mean, at that point, they've seen everything, they've gotten their opportunity to give their feedback, and you're actually able to deliver them what they want and need. Versus, the old days where you do this giant document, you throw it over the wall, you get developers who, guess what? They don't like to read. That was a key takeaway from yesterday's conference. Developers don't like to read, or most people probably don't like to read, but they'll look at the pictures, they'll make some assumptions. Every now and then they might have a question instead of finding the answer in your beautiful document that you labored over for a long time. They call you up. My practice back in the day was okay, open up your spec, it's on page whatever, here's your answer. I would do that just to annoy them, because they were annoying me that they didn't actually read their documentation.
How dare you not read something I created? It's so beautiful. Yes,
I know. And I mean, that was like the hard transition, I think, for business analysis as in the old days versus the newer days. The whole idea of getting to know all the requirements, like that was a comfort as a traditional business analyst back in the day. I felt really good about my work product that I created, and like I got all the answers, there aren't any open questions, and like you fall in love with your own work. It's that whole Pygmalion thing, or whatever. There goes another thing in my kitchen. I'm so sorry. I should have locked him up, but anyway. And I mean, but getting comfortable with ambiguity as you transition to more agile ways of working, that's really challenging. I thought it was a pretty painful transition, to be totally honest. I don't like giving up on my I know everything and I have all the answers. I was like, it was hard to let go of that old mindset and be like, okay, just take a deep breath. We're going to start with a vision. We're going to just build something very minimal, and then we're going to talk about it and we're going to grow it and it's going to evolve and it's going to emerge. And so
Right.
just, and I feel like maybe newer business analysts don't have this old mindset, right? They don't
Right.
even know any different. Like everything's just very small, very, modular. Like they don't have to necessarily think about the whole big picture. They're just like looking a couple sprints ahead, and that's okay. But you still need to have that driving vision, your North Star, like here's what we're
For
doing and
sure.
why, and making sure that it's tying back to your strategic objectives. And I think the sad thing is a lot of people don't even know what the strategic objectives are. Like they don't even know, they don't have the context, which is another thing they think that Agile has done a good job at, is actually giving developers context. I think they're missing that very much before. Like the user story format has all the parts, right? So as some kind of user, I must have some kind of capabilities so I can accomplish some sort of goal. And I think that last part, the why, giving them the why really helps them, get why they're doing the work. Otherwise, here's your document, go do it. Stay in your little, closet. We'll
Right.
push it under the door every, a couple days. Yeah, that's no fun. And I love the engagement and having, the ability to still geek out, because I do still like to geek out.
So speaking of geeking out, so, we have all of these, BA techniques that have been, and especially you like, helped the very first BABA come out.
Yeah.
So we've had like the product owner with it, which Aaron has that. So
Yeah, I got the AAC and the CPOA as well.
there you
yeah.
go. Yep.
Yep.
So what are you thinking in our profession is next, right? Like what new standard or publication that either people has intrigued you, or, you're getting that sense from, just all the people that that really should be the next thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I recently went to a cybersecurity event, and then there was a speaker at Global BA Day. Was it the first day, the Australia group? There was a guy who spoke on cybersecurity and the IIBA's cybersecurity certification. And so I feel like that's probably going to be a big thing coming forward, is this emphasis on cybersecurity.
Right.
And then also AI, of course. AI is
Absolutely.
definitely, it's already here, it's already happening. I use Chat GPT on the daily, right? I'm finding it to be a very good digital assistant. I wouldn't trust it for a lot of things personally. I don't think it's gonna create you a perfect work product by any means, but it's a good, it's an accelerator tool. I think of it as a tool that will speed up your work dramatically. And there have been some really good recent IIBA talks on this as well. There's probably recordings of the webinars and whatnot, but I think there's potential, a lot of power, and it's also very scary at the same
Yeah,
time.
right.
I think, that whole Terminator movie back, it's probably not far off from that. So it's scary. I think there's probably going to need to be some reining in, some laws, standards. I don't know exactly what, but right now it's the wild, wild west. So if you want to experiment, go do it while you can. I also have been using the Adobe Firefly, which is their AI image creator. If anybody has a chance to play with that, you just give it like a description and it'll create a bunch of visual options for you. So I was reading a book and I wanted to create an image of a statue of an Olympian athlete carrying a discus. So this is my description, okay? So I give it this description, it comes back, it's got various options. Some are men, some are women. I'm like, oh, oops, I should have specified I wanted a man. So then, and so you iterate just like any Agile kind of a thing.
Oh,
you're like,
fun.
give me different, I only want men and I want it to be marble or what. You just keep adding details. So eventually it came up with a pretty good statue for me. The only problem was it was cut off halfway through the leg. So like there's the upper body and then there's like a pedestal that it stands on, and it cut it off mid-leg. I don't know what.
You forgot to say you want legs.
I want the whole entire body. No, I actually only need like the top part. So it was fine, but it was like, okay, it definitely is not a human being. It's not going to replace our jobs. Everybody's like
It's
freaking
not
out
not
about
there yet.
it. No, I don't think it's ever going to be there, honestly. I think there's human aspects to the work that we do that just cannot be replaced by a machine. They just, again, I think it'll speed things up. It'll make us faster and more efficient. It'll probably help us avoid certain problems like gaps. It'll help us be more logical and thorough, but you're never going to replace the human aspect of it. No.
So that's good.
I don't
That's
see
good news.
ChatGPT going and engaging with the stakeholders and doing something creative and fun. I just don't see that happening.
Being able to pivot. But and speaking of Chat GPT and then dealing with stakeholders, Rose had a question, and so
Yes.
I'm going to surprise you with it. So
Oh.
surprise. Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. It says, how do you deal with stakeholders who keep changing their requirements? So I don't think Chat GPT knows how to answer that one. So
No. So it depends on your context, right? So if you're in a traditional environment, AKA waterfall, changing requirements are frowned upon. So you're definitely going to have to go down the path of getting a change request and gathering the details and understanding the impact and all the costs involved. And and usually you have, in a larger organization, you'll probably have an approval body, right, that you have to go get it approved through, because at that point, change is really expensive. It's really expensive. But in an agile context, it's baked into the process. And usually what you want to do is protect your current sprint in progress. So if there's a change to something already there, and I mean, don't be rigid either. If it's itty bitty, like change a word in a sentence, go for it. Do it. It's going to take no time at all. But if it's a major or substantial change, it's not like listed in your acceptance criteria. It's definitely not in the scope of the current work. Add it as another user story in your product backlog for future consideration, and then have that conversation, right? Is it something you really need? Is it valuable? And it can get done eventually, but only if it's valuable and only if the product owner decides it's worthwhile, right? So it's just part of the process. And that's the nice thing, is you don't have to resist, because that's the old school, like, nope, we got our baseline, our requirements are set, they're approved, we got this official approval, right? And then you're like fighting against change, and the sooner you get towards the end, the more expensive it gets to deal with change. So the more you're going to resist. So in a waterfall context, the sooner you can figure out the changes, the better, and get them in the original requirements. Because once you have that, approval, then you're in trouble.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to be stuck.
And then Judy has her hand raised. Judy, do you want to ask the question? Can unmute you, or Erin can help me do that. Here we go.
Hi, Judy.
Hi. So I think I hit the wrong button.
Oh,
apologize.
Okay.
I'm going to lower my hand. Is it down? No, not yet.
It's back up.
Well, that was fun.
But if you have a question or comment, you're welcome. Awesome.
Okay. Awesome. So that was great. So hopefully that helped Rose. And it's true, especially now when you don't have, from like where you're doing the entire requirements at the beginning in a truly waterfall perspective, you can just ideate the whole time, right? I mean, if it's not part of the sprint, and part of it too, it's like it really truly does help you with, because it's not really the prototype, but it really helps you get to the product that you want sooner than later, right? Because,
absolutely.
Because a lot of times until you see it or you deal with it, it's just not, or you learn something new. It's like the market shifting or something else.
Oh yeah. I've learned some of these lessons like during COVID, the project that I was on. We were agile, but like part of our project was integrating with Zoom for a mobile app for expectant mothers. So it was it was a really cool project for a Fortune 10 healthcare company. But it was like, all of a sudden, the SDK, the software development kit, breaks. So we can't do what we're trying to do with our projects. We're like, so the requirement emerged that we needed to develop a feature toggle switch so we could turn this thing on and off. And, if it's not going to work because of something we can't control, we can turn it off and choose an alternate selection, to our video. So, I mean, that was never in the original vision of the requirements. COVID just happened to shine the light on, well, what if this happens? You know, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? So, you know, those things are going to happen. And it's just part of the agile process is embracing these things, not, you know, looking at them as a negative, but looking at it as an opportunity to build the best product that your customers will actually want to use.
Right, right. And in being proud to be able to deliver that, right? And
yes,
you know,
absolutely.
because a lot of times while you want to get to the end, like you have a many things, it's also about customer experience. I can deliver something that's going to be readily received and then spend a little more time here and here and here versus just trying to like jam it all in and it not be the best experience. So
right. And I mean, and that's the thing, there's a whole 80-20 rule, right? And if you look at these old specs from the olden days, I mean, how many of the features and the things we built never even got used because they were just a nice to have, not a must have. And, you know, and because there was a lack of trust, I would say early between business and IT, it's like they don't trust they're going to get what they want. So they throw every idea that they've ever had, plus the kitchen sink. Right. And so this is where, you know, it's like we got all these things, but are they really all valuable? Probably not. You're going to get the most value out of 80% of the value out of 20% of the things you're actually building. So keeping that rule in mind is always a good idea. Oops, study says 47% of features added to a product are never used. But yeah, I always use. Yeah, that's a great point, Erin. I always use actually Microsoft Word as a great example. And I was a WordPerfect user. I loved WordPerfect before it got acquired by Microsoft, but it's a pretty bloated tool. If you think about it, it does a gazillion things that most folks, they don't need it. They don't need the footnoting and they don't need the annotating and they don't need all the formatting. They just need to put some words on a piece of paper and print it out. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be formatted really. It just needs to do very basic things. So then if you look at like Google Docs or even like Excel would be another comparable, you know, the Word versions, the desktop versions are just bloated, feature bloat. They are just these beasts. They can do all these cool things, but most people are not ever gonna even scratch the surface of what the capabilities are. And Google Docs is good enough, you know, for most most things. If you're not a college student writing a really elaborate paper that has all these, you know, crazy things, it's good enough, you know, and that's the thing, is stopping when it's good enough and not like going too far. And I think back in the day, the tendency was always go too far. So we've got like all these features that, you know, they are collecting dust.
Yep.
And somebody spent a lot of money to make them happen. And nobody cares. Yeah, MVP. Good call out, Melissa.
Yep. That's always the go-to anymore. It's the MVP. Get it out, get people using it, get some experience back.
Yep, get feedback and then keep iterating. Yep, exactly.
So as we're getting a little bit closer to time, I have some other questions we want to make sure that we get in. Yep. So with IIBA, we have a lot of amazing certifications. You talked about the cybersecurity, we talked about Agile, we talked about you know, CBAP and CPOA.
Yep.
So, do you think all of them are worth their weight in salt? I mean, like there's time and effort in, and by the way, the Bluegrass chapter has amazing training classes all the time. For anyone who's ever interested, that's not a pitch, that's a reality. Just share that with everybody. So
it's a huge benefit of your chapter, honestly. Like when I presented a few weeks back, I saw the list of the CBAP members and I was blown away, absolutely blown away. And I think the CBAP, that was the very first certification I went for because it was and still is the gold standard of business analysis certifications. I mean, the IIBA is the organizing body for the profession, and it is the top dog. And I would say it's absolutely worth it. It is not easy to achieve. So I give huge shout out and kudos to everyone in your chapter who went through that laborious process because it is not easy. It is a hard certification to obtain. I studied for a year and I studied really consistently. And I think, you know, the good thing is to have a study group like you had. I didn't have that. I was doing it basically on my own. And, you know, I did go to a boot camp, which was great, but that's like a week of immersive, intense stuff. And then if you don't go apply it like immediately, you know, you lose that. And so basically I got really good advice, which is to, you know, pick a date and, you know, make a plan and work yourself backwards. And so that's exactly what I did. Pick the date, put it on my calendar, scheduled out, I'm going to study these chapters and do these things, and, you know, just make a good plan and then execute the plan. And yeah, so I think every certification is worthwhile for learning. And especially with CBAP, you are joining a small, very small, if you think about it, percentage of kind of the elite BAs of the globe, right? And that puts us all in the same place. We have the same language, we have the same understanding, we have the same context, and we have, you know, the knowledge areas and all the underlying competencies. Like when you join the ranks of the CBAP, like you're joining a very elite group that is recognized as the top experts in this profession. So I think absolutely that the CBAP is worth it. Even the intermediate ones are probably worth it. You know, the certificate entry level one, it's going to get you the, you know, the foundation, the CCBA for the mid level. I think, you know, there's now programs at like technical colleges. I was on a focus group and then on the board or the advisory committee for a program that was a newly created BA program. It was totally aligned to the IIBA's content. Like they can come out of their 2-year associates ready to sit the CCBA. Like they've got the everything's been aligned to the learnings, and they have then the number of hours and experience, and so they can, you know, come out and already have that mid-level certification. And to me, that it shows a commitment to the profession. You know, you're not just a BA who got like thrown into it and you're just gonna ride the wave, like you don't really care, it's just a job, it's not a like it shows you're a professional in my mind, that, you know, you went to the trouble, that you cared enough, that you spent the energy and the effort to gain that knowledge and take that rigorous test, basically. And then as far as the other certifications, you know, they're less, you know, intense, I would say. I have looked at the data one, I've looked at the cybersecurity one from IIBA. I probably don't have enough of an intense interest myself to go for those at the current point in my career, but who knows? I mean, you know, your next speaker, Dr. Michael, like he has all of them, and there are probably a handful of people who have every single one. You know, that takes a lot of time and effort, but he wants to teach the curriculum, so that totally makes sense to me. But I think there's value in all of them, because you're going to learn something new, you're going to get the vocabulary of the area. So cybersecurity, I'm sure there's specific terms that are like a penetration test, and like there's just all these glossary terms that you might not even be familiar with, that you're going to become familiar with as a result. And some of them are certificates, some of them are certifications, and there is a distinction there, right? Like a certificate, I think the CPOA was a certificate. Like you don't have to recertify every couple of years. You get it once and that's it. And so it's not as rigorous, also not as expensive, but it gives you a specialty knowledge. Whereas the certifications, they're, you know, you're going to have to recertify every few years. You're going to have to continuously learn and like keep track of all your education hours, which chapter meetings and things like this count towards that, right? So they do. Participate. So yeah, I think the ones I have gotten are worthwhile. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. So yeah, not to be shameless here, but our chapter is pretty amazing. I've attended, and that's actually how I really became involved with the Bluegrass chapter personally, was with the training sessions and all of that, joined it, and it was like found my community, you know, like truly. Because you do, as a BA, whether you're a hidden BA or, you know, you have a different job title, but you're doing the activities, you really truly do, when you're going for these certification classes or attending, you know, the webinars and things that you put on, you really do find your community, or at least people that can help you when you need to understand something more, like in your, profession or otherwise. And so it's just, it just really is a glue that helps bring that together.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that your chapter is a rock star when it comes to that. And I highly commend you guys. That is amazing. And I love the support for the professional community. And yeah, when you find your people, yeah, I mean, it's a good place, right? It's a good place
Right.
to be. And you do, all you speak the same language. You can, like bounce ideas and problems and things off of each other, and talk about various solutions. And yeah, just having this community is an amazing thing. And I'm kind of jealous, honestly. We need to grow my chapter into an organization like this. So something to aspire to.
Something to aspire to. And so I have one more question, and actually I love this question because, we like techniques, and a lot of the area that I'm with the community and the engagement, so many of our social events have like a BA technique, right? We
Yes.
pull one in, we try to make it fun and interesting, or just fun, or talk about recipes, but we try to get some learnings there. So
Yeah.
we always take, one of the techniques, whether it's agile or whatnot, and use a tool for that. So, and we're always thinking of what would be our next thing. So, so is there a technique that you've recently used for the first time?
For the first time.
For the first time.
Very first time. Wow, there's so many techniques. There's, like 50 official between the agile, and the BABOK. So very first time. Wow, you're stumping me here.
And if
I have my go-tos,
okay,
so
tell me a go-to. So maybe we'll
I would say my one of my favorite go-tos is just a context diagram. So they're really great for especially like the lowest level, the highest level, I guess I should say. They're really good for depicting scope, right? So those are another one I really love is the use case diagram. So not the use cases, but the use case diagram with the little stick figure people. That one I love that one. Same thing, really great for depicting scope. And in an agile context, you can help it, use it to write your user stories. Another one I'd say that's more new that I have used, so this is probably one of the newer ones, is called a feature tree.
Okay.
And it's similar to like a functional decomposition, but it's more of like visually it's a little bit different, but the concept is similar, where you're basically I would have to find an example to share with you. I think I heard this one on what's her face, Siemens, no, forget her name. She's like Joy Beatty, I think is her name. Joy Beatty. She's with I think it's Siemens, and she had a webinar on this feature tree, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I mean, I had to go out and try it. Every time I do see a new technique, I'm surprised. Kind of frankly, when I do see a new technique, I'm like, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I gotta give that a try. So that's probably the most recent one that just pops into my head. But,
well, given us food for thought. So
or I gotta do a plug for the Rock Crusher. So this so this is a presentation I gave recently. So this is the latest publication through the IIBA called the Rock Crusher. It's all about flow-based backlog management. So I volunteered for actually the Southeast Michigan. So Dr. White's chapter, he reached out and he's like, hey, you want to speak? I'm like, sure. And he's like, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, well, how about this new thing called the Rock Crusher? And then I knew I would have to read the book, because I'm going to present on it. I better have to read the book. So that's exactly what I did. So I read the whole book, and I've given the presentation multiple times, but it's really interesting. It actually addresses some issues, some problems and gaps in traditional Scrum that aren't really covered like in the Scrum guide or anywhere else really. And a lot of it is to do with backlog management and the different horizons and sizes of stories. And there's like this mining analogy. So yeah, that's a whole other presentation, but that's kind of the like latest, greatest, newest thing. And it's really quite intriguing. And I actually just did a blog on it. I should give you guys a link to my website. That's probably the most recent blog I wrote as well. So.
Okay. Well, we'll be happy to, if you provided, we'll send out that to everyone as well, plus the link to the recording and all of that. So we're going to wrap up right now. And so, Rachel, thank you so very much for joining us on the BAs on the Street.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks, Erin.
Fantastic. And we look forward to our next adventures together with some other things we have coming up. So thank you, Rachel. And thank you to everyone for joining. If you have more questions for Rachel, make sure you send them to us and we'll get them to her. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again.
And
take care, everybody.
Fantastic session. They're saying thank you. So
thank you
so much.
Please connect too on LinkedIn. I'll send my LinkedIn as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.